Welcome to Holmy Horror. I've been waiting for you. The Oozing Hunger. The first sign was the stench. It seeped into apartment 3B late one night, curling around Laura's nose as she sat on her worn couch sipping tea. It smelled foul, acrid, and rancid, like rotting meat left too long in the sun, with a sharp, chemical tang. At first, she assumed it was something in her trash, or maybe a dead rat in the walls. By midnight, the smell had intensified, clinging to the back of her throat, burning her sinuses. Frustrated, she threw open her windows despite the icy December wind, but it made no difference. The stench was everywhere. She grabbed a flashlight and searched her apartment, nose wrinkled as she peered under furniture and checked her vents. Nothing seemed out of place until her flashlight beam caught something odd near the living room vent. A glistening smear clung to the edge of the grill, shimmering faintly in the dim light. Laura squinted and stepped closer. What the hell? The smear moved. A thick, viscous droplet oozed out of the vent, stretching into a translucent tendril. Startled, Laura grabbed a tissue from the coffee table and reached out to wipe it away. The moment the tissue made contact, the slime snapped toward her hand like a striking snake. She screamed, stumbling back, but it was too late. The slime latched onto her wrist, its gelatinous mass burning like acid. Laura's skin bubbled and hissed as she frantically tried to shake it off. Her screams growing louder with each passing second. The slime surged, flowing up her arm. Laura grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter and slashed at it, but the blade passed through harmlessly, as though cutting water. The tendrils reached her face, muffling her cries, and then her apartment fell silent. When the police arrived the next morning, they found Laura, or rather, what was left of her. Bones stripped bare, flesh dissolved into a pinkish-gray sludge pooling on the floor. The entire apartment reeked of rot and chemicals. The officers were baffled. "It looks like she was melted," one of them said, his voice trembling. The next night, it struck again. Mike from 5C was lounging on his bed scrolling through his phone when he noticed the smell. It was faint at first, like someone had spilled ammonia. He ignored it, figuring it was just an old building quirk. But as the minutes ticked by, the stench became unbearable. He opened his window, but the air outside offered no reprieve. Then he heard the sound, a faint, wet squelching, like a sponge being wrung out. Mike frowned and looked around. The noise seemed to come from the vent near the floor. He grabbed his phone and crouched down, shining its flashlight into the slats. Something moved. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, squinting. A mass of dark, glistening slime oozed out of the vent, spreading across the carpet. Mike recoiled, but before he could stand, tendrils shot out, wrapping around his ankles. He screamed, grabbing at the sticky strands, but they clung to his skin like tar. The slime pulled him to the ground. Mike thrashed, clawing at the carpet as the ooze crawled up his legs, dissolving his pajama bottoms and blistering his flesh. The smell of burning meat filled the room. His screams turned to choked gurgles as the slime covered his chest, then his face, silencing him. By the end of the week, the building was in chaos. Rumors spread quickly among the tenants. Some spoke of a toxic mold outbreak, others of a biohazard leak from the nearby chemical plant. But none of the explanations accounted for the carnage left behind: stripped skeletons, melted flesh, and the persistent, acrid stench. Tina from 2D locked her door, refusing to leave her apartment. She had her 9-year-old son Jeremy to protect, and she wasn't taking any chances. They sealed the vents with duct tape and stuffed towels under the door. But that night, Jeremy woke her, shaking her shoulder. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It's in my room." Tina bolted upright. "What?" He pointed toward the hallway. "The vent. Something's coming out of it." Grabbing a flashlight, Tina crept to Jeremy's bedroom. The moment she stepped inside, her heart froze. Thick, gelatinous strands of slime were oozing through the taped-up vent, dripping onto the floor. The puddle pulsed, growing larger with every second. "Get behind me," Tina whispered, pushing Jeremy toward the door. The slime quivered as if sensing movement. Then it lunged. Tina shoved Jeremy into the hall, slamming the bedroom door behind them. "Run!" she shouted. "Get to the stairs!" Jeremy hesitated, tears streaming down his face. "Go!" He ran. Tina turned to follow but froze as the door behind her cracked open. The slime surged through the gap, tendrils snapping out and wrapping around her legs. She screamed, clawing at the floor, but the slime dragged her back into the room. Jeremy heard her screams as he fled down the stairwell, but they abruptly stopped. By the next day, the entire building was overrun. The slime spread through the ventilation system, dripping into apartments and seeping under doors. Tenants tried to escape, but the exits were blocked. The building seemed alive, trapping its victims inside. Maria from 1A joined a group of survivors who barricaded themselves in the basement. They hoped the thick concrete walls would protect them, but the stench soon filled the air. "It's coming," Maria whispered, clutching a rosary. The others followed her gaze to the floor drain in the corner. A thin tendril of slime was seeping through the grates, coiling like a living thing. "Kill it," one man shouted, smashing at it with a crowbar. The slime split, multiplying. Panic erupted as the tendrils lashed out, wrapping around ankles and throats. One by one, the survivors fell, their screams echoing off the basement walls. When the authorities finally breached the building, they found nothing but silence. Every apartment was coated in a viscous residue. Skeletons lay scattered among pools of gelatinous slime, their flesh completely dissolved. The air was thick with the stench of death and chemicals. At the center of the building, in the boiler room, they found a massive, pulsating blob. It writhed as if alive, tendrils snaking outward. The hazmat team opened fire with flamethrowers, the room filling with thick, black smoke as the blob burned. It screeched, a high-pitched, inhuman sound that echoed through the building, before collapsing into a bubbling heap. The site was declared neutralized, the building condemned, and the incident quietly buried. Months later, a new apartment complex rose in its place. The first tenants moved in during the spring. Rachel, a young woman fresh out of college, was unpacking her belongings when she noticed a faint, acrid smell. Frowning, she checked the fridge, the trash, the sink. Nothing. Then she saw it. A faint shimmer near the vent, glistening in the dim light. It pulsed, and it was hungry. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories. And remember, be careful. I'll be watching you.